Alright, Shalom, Shalom, Shalom. I want to give all praises to Yahweh Bahashim, Yahweh Shai Bahashim Rakah Kadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well. And peace and salutations to the Akim out there spreading this truth like wildfire in all truthfulness and in all sincerity. And Shalom to the rest of the hopeful elect out there. Alright. Hey, Esau is about to cut the benefits. We got Medicaid work requirements that will lead to more than 1 million people losing coverage. An estimated 17 million people will drop off Medicaid rolls next year if House Republicans' debt ceiling bill with Medicaid work requirements were to become law. A new KFF analysis finds. Why it matters, though Democrats strongly oppose it, tying Medicaid coverage to work could factor into debt limit discussions or the broader budget process after the House endorsed an 80-hour per month requirement, which could save the federal government $109 billion over 10 years per the Congressional Budget Office. What they found, the KFF analysis assumes the work requirements will only apply in expansion states and only to Medicaid enrollees. In the expansion group, since other categories like children and other older adults would be exempt. The analysis estimates 16.7 million Medicaid enrollees in the expansion group would be between ages 19 and 55 in May 2024. If 10% failed to meet the work or reporting requirements, as CBO assumes, 1.7 million Slovakia, 1.7 million enrollees could lose eligibility for federal matching funds in 2024. If states opt to maintain coverage for the 1.7 million Slovakia, again, the change would shift 10.3 billion from federal to state spending in 2024. Supporters of the work requirements said they will encourage people to get jobs to lift themselves out of poverty. To be exempt from the work requirements, people with disabilities will need a clinician to certify that they're physically or mentally unfit for employment, while disability advocacy organization, the ARC, said it is vague and will add to the burden that people with disabilities already face in getting access to care. And a lot of these places to apply for jobs they're getting shut down, So a lot of y'all gonna be asked out. How do I? There you go. That should help. But a lot of y'all are gonna be in the fucked up position, cause of these benefits being cut. Not only that, news. Alright, let me get some scriptures on what I just read. Hold on. Slack you. Isaiah 32:10. Many days and years shall ye be troubled, ye careless women. For the vintage shall fail, the gathering shall not come. So basically, how that could be applied nowadays is the system. It's about to fail, and this is about to fail, y'all. And a lot of y'all that depend on it. Well, there's men too, but a lot of y'all that depend on it are women. A lot of y'all. And the system is about to fail, y'all. You so-called Black, Latino, Latina, Native American, and Israelite foreigner women. And that's if the, and this is if they pass that in the deal to save the debt, to raise the debt ceiling. If not, then shit. Hold up. What could happen if U.S. defaulted on its debt? Huh? Really? Nine questions about the debt ceiling answered. What is the debt ceiling? What happens if the U.S. breaches it? And other questions you were too embarrassed to ask. House Speaker, President, okay, this picture of Joe Biden. And, okay. This spring, Congress finds itself standing at a familiar precipice. Once again, if lawmakers don't agree to suspend or raise the debt ceiling, the federal government risks defaulting on its loans, which will likely cause a massive economic crisis. To add to this urgency, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen recently announced that a default could happen as early as June the 1st. An issue is not whether the debt ceiling and legal cap on how much the U.S. can borrow should be raised, but how. Democrats, led by President Joe Biden, insist that Congress pass a clean debt ceiling increase that does not include any trade-offs to guarantee its passage. House Republicans, meanwhile, are eager to pass spending cuts in exchange for approving any debt ceiling increase, with some saying they're unwilling to compromise on this point. The standoff has led to concerns that the U.S. could come dangerously close to actually defaulting, which it came within 72 hours of doing in 2011. The reason Congress continues to land in the same place is that raising or suspending the debt ceiling, much like funding the government, is something it must address on a regular basis, because it's a must-pass legislation and requires the backing of both chambers. The party that's out of power in the White House or in the minority in Congress has often used this measure as leverage to extract policy concessions or send a political message. Republicans are attempting to do just that this time around, and it's all a political puppet show, man. They're not like acting independently. Like Franklin D. Roosevelt said, nothing in politics happens by accident. So they're not like it's orchestrated, basically. Republicans are attempting to do just this time around, pushing significant spending cuts in the Limit Save Grow Act, which is their opening bid to the negotiations. At this point, Biden has been unwilling to consider such trade-offs, though the two sides are scheduled to meet at the White House next week to discuss potential options. For years, the U.S. has been in a dangerous cycle which the minority party tries to squeeze every concession it can out of the process. That soon negotiations go down to the wire, and any miscalculation on the part of lawmakers could tip the U.S. towards default. Thus far, this year hasn't proven any different. What's the debt ceiling? It's also according to prophecy, though, that at the same time as these are two horns, these are two horns of the same beast that came out of the earth, which is basically the revived Roman Empire, which is America and the EU and NATO countries. Well, with the horror being America. It's also prophesied that this place would be divided, but the people would be that it would be that Satan would be against Satan. The Egyptians would be against the Egyptians, because this place is Sodom and Egypt all over again. But this would probably be I could say it's an orchestrated event to bring order ab chaos, with each side blaming each other. But anyways, what is the debt ceiling? The first thing to know about the debt ceiling is that the name implies it has something to do with the national debt. Congress passes spending bills and tax laws. The revenues from those taxes pay for the spending. Often there's not enough, and the U.S. Treasury has to borrow money to make up the difference. Year after year of doing this has brought us the national debt currently at more than 31 trillion. The debt has been accrued under both parties. During the Trump administration, the national debt rose roughly 7.8 billion, and under the Biden administration so far it's gone up about 3.7 billion. And who they're borrowing from is mainly the Fed, that private bank that they say is a public bank, but it's got private shareholders. But yeah, from banks, they're mainly borrowing from. Yeah, the debt ceiling is simply the cap on how much the U.S. can borrow from banks, investors, foreign countries, etc., to help pay for the spending Congress has enacted. As Vox's Dylan Matthews has explained, the U.S. is unique in having a debt limit that lawmakers need to suspend or raise every few years. Were the U.S. to hit its debt ceiling, it would effectively mean that it couldn't pay any of its bills. A debt limit was first established in 1917 in order to make it easier to finance mobilization efforts in World War I per the Brookings Institution, according to them. Before that, Congress had to issue bonds every time it needed to borrow money, which proved unwieldy. Setting a debt ceiling enabled the U.S. government to take on debt to more quickly and efficiently finance the military. But the debt ceiling doesn't automatically adjust for inflation or a growing economy, so it needs to be raised over time. Since the 1960s, Congress has raised the debt ceiling more than 70 times. 20 of those times have been in the last 23 years. And as the present situation suggests, has become increasingly used as leverage in budget negotiations during periods when government is split between Republicans and Democrats. What is the U.S. expected to reach? When is the U.S. expected to breach the debt ceiling? Technically, the U.S. already hit the debt ceiling in January, and the Treasury has been imploding. The Treasury Department has been employing accounting tactics known as extraordinary measures to buy some more time. That's basically a fancy term for accounting gymnastics that buy the government more time before it truly runs out of money. But as Yellen said in her letter, the Treasury Department is running out such moves, and the so-called X date might be as early as June 1st. Has the U.S. ever breached the debt ceiling before? The U.S. has never knowingly and purpose. Okay, what would happen? Let's just get down to the point. What would happen if we breach the debt ceiling? Once we breach the debt ceiling, the federal government will not be able to pay its bills or for things like Social Security checks, payroll for service members and other federal employees, and Medicare reimbursements. Interest payments on its past debt could go unpaid, which would mean the U.S. government would default on its debts. In 2011, the Federal Reserve and Treasury Department planned on prioritizing interest payments, acknowledging that they would miss payments of other things like Social Security checks, veterans benefits, etc. The U.S. would probably enter recession, probably a quite severe one, and their whole world would face a massive financial crisis. So that they would miss payments of things like Social Security checks, veterans benefits, etc. So that's another way of how the vintage would should fail. How the vintage shall fail, the gathering shall not come. And also this, the U.S. would almost certainly enter a recession, probably a quite severe one, and the whole world could face a massive financial crisis. Beth Ann Bovino, chief U.S. economist at Standard & Poor's, was hardly alone in 2017 when she predicted that the impact of a default by the U.S. government on its debts would be worse than the collapse of Lehman Brothers in 2008. Yeah. And they're saying that the rest of it is some some peace and safety type talk. But basically, yeah. Slakia, they didn't mean to do that. But basically, there would be. Basically, they could bring about. This is the way that the Most High, Yahweh, could bring about Jacob's trouble. This is a way that they could bring it about from the economic collapse. And it would be another time like no other. Now let me get this real quick. Okay, Khan. And it shall come to pass, Zephaniah 1 and 10, and it shall come to pass in that day, saith Yahweh, that there shall be a noise of a cry from the fish gate, and the howling from the second, and a great crashing from the hills. Verse 11, how ye inhabitants of Maktesh, for all the merchant people are cut down, and all they that bear silver are cut off. And Jacob's trouble could easily come out of this. They could easily use this to collapse the dollar and implement the digital currency, the new digital dollar, or even the international digital currency, the unicorn. They could even take that step. But based on how they work, they probably, well, they'll use it to implement a digital currency of some kind. I could see that happening. from the economic, uh, from the recession and hyperinflation that could happen, to fix it. They could come out and say, well, the only way, and they probably, this is a very likely scenario, and they probably gonna be like see them being like, the only solution is that we gotta go digital, completely digital. And then eventually, they could probably gonna go from there, from it being digital to the RFID chip. So they're gonna have a little, so I could see them doing an Oro Ab KO type event. Jeremiah 30:7, alas, for that day is great, so that none is like it. It is even the time of Jacob's trouble, but he shall be saved out of it. And from that, Oro Ab Chaos event, that could be how Esau causes Revelations chapter 13, verse 16, and he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in the right hand or in their foreheads. Verse 17, and that no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Verse 18, here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. So, and he causes it all, both small and great, right? Rich and poor, free and bond. This could be one of the ways that he causes that to happen. And all y'all that depending on the system, and not only how about Shimmy Shai, didn't just use the system but abuse it. Like, didn't just but you're like, you think that the system gonna save you, basically. You think that the system gonna save you. Doesn't mean you can't use it at all, but you think that it's gonna save you. Instead of depending on the Yahweh Shimmy Al Shai. And the system is a system, the economy too. the entire beast system, depending on trusting in. Okay, trusting in. That's the right words. Trusting in Egypt for help. Y'all are gonna eventually y'all are gonna have to make a choice, and only the elect is gonna make the right choice. 2/3 of you so-called black people, Latinos, Native Americans, and you speckled birds, y'all are gonna make the wrong choice. Y'all gonna choose. Y'all gonna make the choice to take the horrified Egypt. You want to buy and sell, right? Instead of trusting in Yahweh Shem Yahushai. So you're gonna take the MOTB. But yeah, either way, the vintage is gonna fail here in America. Either way, whether they pass this thing and they have new requirements, work requirements, while all these places are failing and getting shut down, like Walmart, like a lot of McDonald's are getting shut down, like Burger King. A lot of Burger Kings are set to shut down. David's Bridal. A couple of, many other places. Many other places. And while you got the BRICS countries still set to dump the dollar, don't forget about that. A lot of y'all that are at ease right now, y'all finna be trembling. Y'all finna be trembling. Because a time like no other is about to come. So with that, I want to give all praises to Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai, Ba'Shem Kadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well. And peace and salutations to the Akim out there spreading this truth like wildfire in all truthfulness and all sincerity. And shalom to the rest of the hopeful elect out there. Shalom, stay strong, Baba Ball. That's Babylon, Abadla Adawamium, that to these Edomites, Abadla Gawayim, that to these other nations, Nabadla Abadla Ayabyam Nawa, that to the rest of our enemies. That to our enemies, the rest of them being the 2/3. Yeah, that to our enemies is what it means in the Hebrew. The rest of our enemies being you 2/3 of the nation of Israel, so-called black people, Latinos, and Native Americans, 2/3 of y'all, as well as 2/3 of you speckled birds here in the States, and your aka Israelite foreigners here in the States, and also to the rebels that are scattered among you Jakes, you Northern Kingdom Jakes that live outside the country. Well, you some of you Southern Kingdom Jakes as well, because you got the tribe of Levi down there, mainly in Haiti, and tribe of Benjamin mainly in the West Indies. The West Indies. So, well, the 2/3 thing applies to no internet connection. Applies to here in Babylon. So, internet connection keep fucking up. Hate when this shit happens. Okay, so with that, the rebels that are among you so-called black people, Latinos, and Native Americans that don't live in the states, don't live in Babylon, and you rebels that are among the Israelite foreigners scattered to the four corners of the earth, you rebels against Yahweh Hashem Yahweh Shai. You know, y'all are also enemies. You know, no, that's y'all as well. And yeah, Shalom, stay strong, Abba Baba, and Yashrala forever. Shalom.